Welcome to the NFT show, the Defiant NFT show on this day, Thursday, the 2nd of December, the day that we tell you digital fashion is going to do some things to your brain that you will not understand, but you might well like them. We are going to be talking to some fierce females who represent the best of the digital fashion space in a very short while. But the first, what I wanted to do was open up a kind of community corkboard segment for this show, a chance for projects to just tell us what they're up to, if they're doing something cool. This is the very first time we're doing this, and we're inviting Top Dog Beach Club to talk about the non-fungible vault. It's a place in Norway underneath a mountain, underneath the permafrost, where they will be storing like copies of NFTs to preserve them for the next 1,000 years, because they don't fundamentally trust IPFS or Arweave or any of these digital solutions. They want a real life backup of artwork. So I talked to Paul and Abby from the team exactly about what on earth they're doing and what it's all about.
In summary, what we're doing is we're taking the NFTs and we're storing them in what we're calling the non-fungible vault.
You're actually doing something IRL.
Where the whole strapline is we're protecting provenance for 1,000 years. And what that means is essentially we are going to be etching and storing NFTs, so the digital art, the provenance information, onto some special film, so physical film. And then we're storing below a decommissioned coal mine in Norway, which just sounds mental.
So this is in the Arctic, right?
Mm.
And it's going to be a physical vault where an NFT, which is a non-fungible token, which is the digital asset, which is normally stored on Arweave or on IFPS, but you're doing it for real.
Yeah.
So the question is, why?
Why exactly? I guess if you think about the internet and digital media, it's not really permanent. Like the internet existed for what, 30, 35 years as we know it, which is just a blink of human history. And if you think even just back 5, 10 years ago, sort of all the websites, all the information that existed back then, like MySpace, Ask Jeeves, loads of different social medias networks have come and gone, and then with it, all of that sort of information and collection of human knowledge, human interactions just disappeared and gone forever. And when you think about NFTs, you think, oh, they're on the blockchain, they're there permanently. But actually, it's not the case. So the NFT token itself is on the blockchain, but what that token is attached to, i.e. the art, the digital media, is usually on some sort of centralized server, so Amazon Cloud, Google Cloud. Even better, it's on IPFS, but that even still has issues. And essentially, if one of these projects or one of these artists stop paying their bill, then that art linking to that token disappears. There was some research carried out, I think it was late last year, early this year, about 45% of all NFTs created so far are now basically 404 pages. So they're just gone, which is crazy when you think about the sort of the time that NFTs have actually been around. It's not that long at all. So we want to protect that digital art. Like we are in the middle of a movement, and what's being produced right now is going to be culturally significant in a year, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years from now. We want to make sure that artwork, those beautiful creations, are sort of captured forever in a time capsule almost.
There's a vault in Norway. I think there's quite a number of seed phrase vaults for people who own large chunks of Bitcoin, where they can store them on, aluminium etched discs or titanium discs. Is it sort of like that, where you're going to store it in a very secure, very well protected, lots of redundancy style vault underneath the ice somewhere?
Yeah, so we've purposely chosen this facility because it's 300 meters below the permafrost of a Norwegian mountain. Basically, it's an old decommissioned coal mine, and it requires no electricity to supply to run. No technology, doesn't require any technology. It's reinforced with like really thick steel walls, and yeah, I mean it is the most politically stable place on Earth. Because it's below the permafrost, it's also the most environmentally stable place as well. And the film we're putting it on, the sort of the partner we've chosen to work with on that, guarantees for 1,000 years that data will be stored and be able to be read. So we're sort of thinking centuries from now, people can look back and look at the artworks, which is
it's
awesome.
actually been stored next to some really significant documents, isn't it? The Vatican manuscripts and scientific discoveries, things like that. So it's up there with the most important things in history.
Yeah, it's not a facility we're making or we're building. It's a facility that already exists. It's called the Arctic World Archive, this one. Yeah, and as Abby mentioned, it has manuscripts from the Vatican Library, political histories, scientific histories from the European Space Agency, NASA, Rembrandt and Munch masterpieces, pretty much any sort of culturally significant human history breakthrough is stored there already. And now we want to put NFTs there as well.
I think this just shows kind of how we feel about NFTs. You know, they are here to stay. They are going to be culturally significant in the future. And can you imagine if you bought an ape and paid 100 grand, 200 grand, whatever they're worth now, and it just disappeared?
Yeah, there was something you mentioned as well, which was that it doesn't require any electricity to run. I think one of the sticks that often is used to beat NFTs with is their environmental impact, which is in fact an Ethereum problem, not an NFT problem. But clearly you've picked this because it does have a minimal impact on the environment.
This is not something that's going to take up a lot of carbon or a lot of energy, and that's another reason why we love it. We're actually talking to the providers about putting something more official together to explain exactly what the carbon will be involved in this, the energy. So yeah, minimal though, from what we can tell.
So that was a little look at the Svalbard non-fungible vault, courtesy of Top Dog Beach Club. It's now time to invite my guests onto the show. First up, we have the senior producer at Fabricant, Nirmala Shome. Now, Fabricant was the producer of the world's first digital-only dress on the blockchain. It seemed like a seminal moment a long time ago. Welcome, Nirmala, to the show. Nice to have you here. My next guest is Shayli Harrison, designer and founder of Mutani. She also attended the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Antwerp. We will discover why that is so significant. Her drop with the Dematerialized is coming up very, very soon, and she's representing the brand right now. Finally, we have two more. We have Emma Jane McKinnon-Lee, founder of Digitalax, the protocol that allows you to free your style across realms. There's a forkable protocol stack for Web3 fashion and the open metaverse. Lots of exciting things going on there. And finally, Rebecca Ballantine Reid, actress, stand-up comedian, and also founder of Audrey Mouse, a really intriguing metaverse fashion comedy female-led project, which has just got so much style and so much sass. I'm very excited to have you all on the show today. Thanks so much. First question for all of you, I guess, is we were talking about the environmental impact of NFTs, and I think all of you are motivated in some degree by a kind of desire to see fashion move into a more sustainable, more circular kind of production cycle, and digital seems to open up opportunities for doing that. Nirmala, I want to put it to you first. Is this been part of Fabricant's mission from the get-go to be ecologically friendly and environmentally sound?
Yeah, definitely. I think that was kind of, the vision of Amber and Kerry right from the start, moving into digital fashion was, we need to find a more sustainable solution, but have people still express themselves in all, the different ways possible through fashion. So digital was like a natural, direction for them. But, moving on to the blockchain, obviously there's a lot of kind of, issues there in terms of how the chains are maintained and created. But we have thought a lot about that. And actually the platform that we're building, the Fabricant Studio, the blockchain we chose to use is Flow. And Flow is, it kind of hits all the boxes in terms of it's way more scalable, it's way more sustainable, it uses proof of stake. So that was kind of why we chose that blockchain. So we're definitely aware of it. And we're actually looking to see if we can do some data research on how much energy we are going to be using per season through this new method of creating through the platform. So yeah, definitely something we think about.
Emma Jane, you have probably more than anybody else been exploring protocols and interoperability and different file formats. Have you found a winning formula for the protocol level side of things now?
In terms of sustainability?
Yeah.
Yeah, really good question. So how I look at it, and I think it's the best way to look at it, is sustainability. In order for it to actually work, so in order for the fashion industry to actually become sustainable, first of all, you need to decentralize the capital stack, because until you actually free up the money flow, so you allow it to actually become what capitalist is in its true source, which is the generation and circulation of wealth. I mean, we do not live in a capitalist society at the moment. It's complete debt issuance. Then it will always be stuck in the old systems. And that's the way that we have it today. That's why fashion industry is so unsustainable, because when you look at the supply chains, there's all of these choke points where these large players, they're suffocating the entire market and they have complete control. So what they say goes. And so the first thing is to really go back to why are we all here? It's because decentralization matters. Web3 at its core actually really matters. So until you decentralize the capital stack, nothing's going to happen, because the best way to bring about sustainability is to give economic empowerment to everyone, edge to edge. And that's what blockchain does. So in response to Nirmala's comment, and sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly,
No,
I do kind of disagree in terms of flow as a blockchain. It might be scalable for now, but in terms of decentralized, it's not decentralized. It is VCs coming in there. It's incredibly centralized the way that it's set up. It's debt issuance. It's not actually blockchain and Web3 as it is. And so although from a tech side, it might be kind of, hitting certain boxes, at the end of the day, it doesn't actually decentralize the capital stack. And that's what you need. You need to empower every individual to be able to have the ability to have agency to make their own choices.
It's so funny because we've just been rereading the interview that I did with you, Emma Jane. It must have been 8 months ago now that we first spoke. And I have transcripts of all of that. And, your passion and your fire for that side of things, the decentralization, it hasn't waned at all. It's fantastic to see. Shayli, Mutani, Antwerp. I mean, you're sitting right there at this kind of nexus of the most exciting, innovative, avant-garde fashion. How have you found your way into the digital space? What's your journey been?
Mutani was founded, I always say it's against the exploitation involved in the fashion industry. And that's become a real problem for a lot of us here. The Antwerp fashion department is the home of some of the most creative designers that we know, and some of the most independent designers that have been long-standing since the 80s. And they're quite stubborn in that. A lot of the brands that were founded here have not gave way to being bought out, for example. But the problem we're having is that all of this creativity is being bred at the academy. There's all this really amazing, wild, creative stuff coming out, but everyone gets pushed into working for these larger brands or doing internships, maybe 5 for free. Even if you get the job, you're paid a very low wage. You work 7 days a week, sometimes into the wee hours of the morning. It's not great from the top down. And a lot of these people are really, really talented and looking for a way out as well. So I really saw the opportunity with myself and all of the designers around me to leverage this technology and this space to be able to adapt our ideas and our vision towards games, because we can be creatively free and we're outside of the confines of the traditional commercial fashion space.
Would you say that the work that you're doing is high fashion? I mean, I look at Fabricant's work and I'm like, wow, this is mind-blowing stuff. And I look at Mutani and it's like, this is pretty full on. Do you see that there's a path for gamers to adopt that kind of style and vision for moving forward into the metaverse and that kind of thing?
For sure. And I think that's what's really exciting for us designers is this is a real meeting point for us. All of us love to play dress ups and prance around. And this is so similar in the game space or even in the cosplay space. It's really the point at where we meet is when we're creating alter egos. And that when I talk to the designers about entering Web3 in the digital fashion space, okay, they say get spooked about the technology. But when you start talking about aesthetics in subculture and like the fantasy of virtual environments and the creative limitlessness, everyone's little eyes light up because it's really what we all want at the end of the day. And I do think that the kind of randomness of the game space is open for that.
Well, you talk about dressing up, about fantasy, Rebecca. That basically is your entire job. is creating characters and dreaming up concepts. Can you tell us a little bit about Audrey Mouse, about your project and how you've come to this? Because you come from a very different side of the tracks than everyone else on the stream.
Yeah, I mean, I have a background in, international fashion, and then, for many years I've been on sitcoms and have been a stand-up comedian. And I saw that I was so intrigued by this space actually through, watching Defiant videos. And I think I suddenly got what this space was when you just said, Robin, that NFTs were tech plus mythology. And that did something to my brain. I was like, wow, we're creating a new language. I can be a part of this. And so I saw that there was kind of no one in the space that I could find who was doing comedy. And so I have this character called Audrey Mouse that was seen by producers in Los Angeles that got me onto this show called New Girl, where I had to explain to one of the characters, which is, Robin's second name, Schmidt.
Yes.
Mickey Mouse, and who Mickey Mouse was, and I broke his penis. But that's by the by. That's nothing to do with Audrey Mouse and all the teas. But that's like
the legendary Nadia. The legendary Nadia. That's you.
Legendary, yes. What is Mickey Mouse? Why don't you get in your spaceship like a Mickey Mouse? Yeah. So that's how the character and then I did lots of different, stand up and different things with her, and I just saw that she could be in this space. And then also I looked at these NFTs and I thought they can be more than just portraits. They can say more. They can be funny. They can say things about, I'd come from a TV project which was challenging the overculture, in this male-dominated industry of fashion. So telling stories which are expansive for women, like, you can start a family in your 40s, you really can, or you can fall in love in your 50s for the first time, and it's not too late, right? And so I thought, well, in these NFTs, I can actually put things in there. So there's this one NFT that we have now, which is a story that I'm telling, which is animated. And it's about how, I had this neighbor in Los Angeles who would watch me from my car every morning. And one morning I just I couldn't stand it anymore. I just turned around and I flipped in the bird. And he literally fell back from the window like I'd shot a gun. And I said to my friend on the phone in the car, I was like, I finally found out what my sacred no looks like. And I said that to a couple of friends, and I put it in my Insta stories, and women were reacting to that. And so I just found that this can be more than just portraits. So yes, we are doing the art collectible drop, but then there it is married with digital fashion. So, shortly after the drop, we are giving away Audrey Mouse holders free outfits to then bridge over to Polly. So then they can have a full body Audrey, and then we will be, building a digital marketplace, which we're doing.
Well, I think the best thing that we can do is show a clip. But
Okay.
I think it'd be really good to see everybody else's work as well on the stream. So, Al, could you queue up Audrey Mouse talking about Ryan Reynolds?
Oh, Ryan Reynolds. Oh, yeah, I love him.
I'll be still finding the clip. So he's almost there. This is live, everybody. Look at that. It's happening, everyone. This is... So what I love about what you've done, Rebecca, is you've taken an aesthetic, you've taken a style, and you've imbued it with your own personality, and you've said, this is just who I am, this is what I want to do. What I loved about it as well is that the drawing style really, it feels classic, it feels like hand-drawn versions of fashion. It feels very old-fashioned in a way, and it's a kind of beautiful expression of those ideas. Alp, have you got some images that we can see? So this is the Metaverse fashion version of Audrey. So obviously it's Audrey Hepburn, but it's Audrey Mouse, and you kind of styled yourself. And what people probably don't know is that Rebecca's also formerly a high fashion model. So she's come from this world, and she's probably spent tons of time on photo shoots and on runways and stuff. But so you know this world, and you know what it's like to be this character.
Yeah. Yes.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
And I also know that, that this digital, fashion world is a little bit complicated right now. And, I know that I want to be a part of it. And that's why I'm working with devs to simplify this, right? Because I want it to be easy, like Etsy, like Amazon, because we are going to create a full digital marketplace, a bit like the Avogacci model, but several steps further, where we were selling land and we can divide it up. So there will be like brands in there as well as emerging brands. And then, Audrey will bring in the future more characters. So it's Audrey Mouse and Friends, which is my personal favorite part of it, because that's collaborations with other female artists, which I'm very passionate about. Collaborating with other women.
But Nirmala, Fabricant has a huge ambition to involve other creators and other artists into the Fabricant family. Al, can you bring up some of Fabricant's work? Because I think people should really see what's being created there. It's absolutely incredible. But Nirmala, can you tell us a little bit how you're bringing other artists and other creators into the family?
Yeah, I can. And actually, it's great Shayli's on this call, because she's also going to be part of the family for season 1, which will be launching in a few weeks. Actually, and basically what we're doing is we're building a platform which is all about co-creation. I think like we've got a great manifesto that people can read on the site and on our Twitter that basically talks about allowing anyone to be a creator. And obviously there are current limitations to being a digital fashion creator, whether it's the tool set, the education, even like the process of like exporting that and getting it shared and things like that. So the platform we're creating, the studio, is where we allow people, we kind of bring a few different people together. There's garment creators, so people that kind of create the base material, the base garment, the 3D model. We have material creators. So Shayli's one of our material creators, and we've got 12 others that will be giving us kind of just like tiles, fabric tiles. And then co-creators can kind of come to the site and remix the garments with the materials to create, and with colors as well, to create like a one-of-one unique NFT. We are going to be launching a marketplace on the site too that people can trade with. And we're also talking to other secondary markets. And then I think that the other really exciting part is the wearability. So kind of finding ways to get that interoperability with other metaverse partners. So we're talking to people like DressX, Sandbox, Darewise, which is another NFT gaming platform. There's going to be a collection they have that you can customize on the platform and bring those into the game itself. So this is all still really, a lot of it's like, season 1. So it's like early stage. So we're only really scratching the surface. I think the big vision for our platform is kind of, the starting point to reimagine the fashion economy in digital, so what are all the different people that can kind of take part in that will have a place on the platform and go beyond the platform. And I think, decentralization is actually something we really value too. So right now we're kind of like curating things. So it's like we're kind of, selecting the creators for the season. But the goal is that we will kind of, that will just be something that people will do, and they can just use the platform to, upload their own creations, set up their own seasons, set up their own, storefronts and things like that, and can kind of act completely independently. And so we're really building towards that for next year. The plan is to launch the DAO next year. So yeah, I think we have a really big vision, and season 1 is just scratching the surface. So yeah, exciting things to come.
I look at these garments and I'm just in awe. It's Clo 3D. Are they being implemented in Unreal Engine? How are these being designed?
Exactly. So we're starting with Clo, just because that's kind of what the team currently use. And a lot of digital fashion designers do use Clo. So we're starting with Clo and Marvelous. We're also working with designers that use, Cinema 4D and just other 3D software to design as well. And then what we're kind of doing with the platform, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's happening behind the scenes. But basically, because we're doing, with all these combinations, right? Like this season 1, I think there's like a potential of 45,000 different combinations with all the creators and colors and garments we have. We're obviously not planning to pre-render all of that. That would just be a total waste of energy, but also like extremely time consuming. So we're going to allow people on the site to kind of just do like a WebGL preview and kind of remix everything. And then we're rendering everything in Unreal in real time based on the combinations, and then giving everyone like high resolution videos and images. And the models themselves, that's what we're looking at, is like how we can create, the other utility with that. So that's where the models would have to go to different partners and things like that. So yeah, Unreal we work with Unreal. They're one of our partners too. And yeah, I have to say, like, it's been just like the work that happens behind the scenes to get this stuff working is pretty epic. It's super interesting. So yeah.
Shayli, Rebecca was talking about a moment where the lights came on and she went, "Oh, hang on, there's a place for me here." I suspect there's probably a story for you there as well. Can you tell us how you made that transition from working with fabrics to working with pixels?
I started 3D scanning my collection in 2016. I was scanning my archive, but I was frustrated because I really wanted it to move and I really wanted to build more with it. So when I graduated, I did a commission project for Z33 Gallery in Hasselt and put a team together, and we did a virtual reality piece. That really opened my eyes to how I could really build out a more like magical vision and something more immersive, but I still wanted to push it to the next level. So I actually worked with Digital Village for the past year to produce a digital fashion film. It's been a hard grind because I've been learning all of these technologies from start to finish, and all of the language and all of the bugs and all of the constant walls that we keep hitting. So it's been a huge learning curve, but it's a collaboration with about 12 each to their own really talented creators. And I would provide all the visual material, my illustrations, my references, and then we would bounce back and forth and work together to be able to manifest these ideas. So that whole film is about a topic called plant blindness, which is about the imbalance in plant and animal conservation. So we built 3 endangered plant species characters, and I built fashion around plant bodies. So it's like pretty wild. Everything's rigged, animated, built in Unreal. There's an entire virtual world. It's like a film, soundtrack, lighting, the whole thing. I learned about cinema during this. But then Evelyn, who runs Digital Village, said, I can sell my assets on the marketplace for tokens. And that's when I was like, the fuck can I do with tokens? Can I pay my rent? And then I fell down the rabbit hole and it all tumbled out of there. So yeah, that's my little light came on story.
Yeah, it definitely feels like there's been this collision of lots of different ideas and things where we've always bumped up against, well, no, of course you can't do that. You can't do this and you can't do that because they do that and they do that. But suddenly it's like, well, actually, no, you can do everything. You really can, and you can actually control where your story goes and how your garments are put together. I know, Emma Jane, that you're working very hard to make all of that a lot easier for people in terms of technology. But I also know that from our earlier conversation that you saw games and gamers being like the breakout, most exciting part of all of this. Is that still the case?
Look, I think that the era of like static off-the-shelf gaming, it's really rapidly declining because now we're moving into this new rich digital medium, which is the metaverse. And when you think about that, well, what is the metaverse? A lot of people describe it as like 3D objects being on a screen, and then that screen's attached to your face, or it's like cartoons running around. But when you really think about it, the metaverse is the removal of limits on the ability for anyone, either on their own or in groups, to engage with the full set of power tools across finance, governance, fashion, food production, cultural, social experiences, literally everything. And when you think about that, and then you think about what is the full expression of Web3 in the open decentralized metaverse, Web3 itself is just a self-sovereign, uncensorable social coordination technology. And when you combine that with a new rich digital medium and layer that we can all interact with, that is enhancing the physical as well, that means now everyone in their device, in their pocket, they now have these power tools to literally be able to build cities, nations, governments, global economies, because everything is built on coordination. And so I do think that this kind of the way that we see industries today is definitely transforming. This idea of like just taking an outfit into a game and then playing it in one game and another, that's great and it's nice, but the real power comes from being able to do that in a completely decentralized environment, embed capital, tech, and governance into everything, which means now your interface and your layer is becoming programmable. It's not just meat space. That means that it could be, DeFi staking for yield. It could literally be earning you money, and we call it where to earn instead of play to earn. When you take like outfits into different game environments, and they can also start earning you crypto yield, for example. And then like other things where that outfit could like unlock token gated access into a different world or a quest. So I really think that it's about combining all of these things. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, do you really understand the power of Web3? Do you understand the medium that you're building in? Are you just minting fashion NFTs? Or do you actually understand that if you really decentralize three core things, capital, technology, and governance, then you have just created a complete power tool that now any designer can take. They don't have to go on Simpa platform. They don't have to go and rely on one marketplace. They can build out their own realm, their own DAO, their own NFT marketplace, their own ERC20 governance token, and they can be self-sovereign. And that's really what this is about. Web3 gives you that power. You don't need to be a Web2 simp. You don't need to go suck up to a VC and go into debt. You can now go directly to the market, create real products, bring value back from that. And that's, our focus. So gaming is like a rich interface and immersive experience of that.
Yowzers. I mean, that's a lot. And I know you're so wrapped up and immersed in this, and it's inspiring and awesome. And I wish I could explain it as well as you do. But you've told us the whole picture. And I think from a lot of people, there's going to necessarily be an entry point, a thing that they can cling on to and get before they go further. And Rebecca's talking about how she watched one of my videos and that unleashed a tiny little idea. If you rewind back, what do you think is a hook that gets people in? What is a tiny little thing that they can start on this journey with? Because it's a big old journey to go on.
I think it is really cool fashion. It's launching a fleet of indie designers to go out there and build amazing garments across the physical world, the digital world, and then people to be able to see that, because that's what this is all about, right? Fashion is your visual interface. It's how we communicate. It's our oldest utility, our rawest toolkit. I mean, computation came from textile production. So it's enabling every designer with the tools to be able to go out there and create amazing, cool fashion, whatever style that they desire, whatever is suiting their brand, whether that's like hyper black or an amazing luxury couture dress, whatever. And then people, they relate to that. And they're going to want to wear that because that's identity, that's self-expression. And then they fall down that rabbit hole because then they realize, okay, I'm buying this fashion piece, but actually it's an NFT. And now what's an NFT? What's the utility of that? Maybe it's DeFi, maybe it's gaming. So yeah, I mean, that's what we're doing. It's about empowering designers out there to go and have the capital, the tech, and the governance to bring that to the market.
Rebecca, you are someone who's been on TV. You're known. We could call you an influencer. You probably wouldn't want that term, but if you are going to position yourself as the face of this thing, inevitably that's what you will become. Yeah, and I also saw that you made a video where you tried to explain cryptocurrency and NFTs. Do you feel there's a burden on you to sort of smooth that on-ramp path for people into this space? Do you kind of know where your audience is and who they are?
Well, I love it because I know that, okay, I read this statistic. It was like upwards of 20-30% of women, like they want to get into cryptocurrency, but they don't know where to begin. And, this is funny. Larry Morris, who plays, Winston on New Girl, he, was going to buy a punk at the very beginning.
No, really?
And then he couldn't figure out his MetaMask wallet. He was like looking at his computer at the MetaMask wallet, looking at his own wallet, and he was just like, oh, fuck this, and close the computer. Because it's just like, like you want to be a part of it, but you can't, but you don't know how to get in, right? So what was the question again?
Well, no, it was actually more the burden you think.
No,
Yes.
Robin, no, that's the thing. I love the education part of it, and I've done these videos. I'm going to continue to do it, and I've been sharing them on my social media because I'm learning from these videos, like what's cryptocurrency, what are NFTs, how do you set up your MetaMask wallet. I love it because I want to bring more people into this space. That is the Audrey Mouse mission, and I don't know everything. I'm learning. I'm relatively new to this space, but I've just kind of like woken up to the digital gods. They're calling me, and so yeah, I am becoming. I suppose Audrey Mouse is becoming an educator because I'm really interested in it, and I have women all the time. They message me on Instagram, what's an NFT? I really want to get into this space. My husband's into NFTs. I feel like I should be. And, I just want to make it more accessible.
Yeah, it's one of the things that people say about me is that they feel intimidated by me because
No.
I talk with great kind of elan about everything. And like, I know that I'm not the person that can necessarily communicate to like a vast majority of the population. So I think the more people who have that.
Well, sorry to cut you off. I'm just like surprised because one of the reasons why I am in this space is because of your videos. Like I've watched the one on NFTs a few times.
Which one? I made a bunch.
I think you're such a good communicator. I'm not saying that because I want to come on the show again. Of course I do. But this is true.
But the truth is, though, yeah. I'm not a fashionable person. My wife watches these and she's like, what are you wearing? But I love fashion and I try and absorb it. And having made music videos in the past, I can have a very intellectual conversation with somebody about fashion, but I don't live it and breathe it. But I do love it. And I've started to love it more digitally. But I also have a huge amount of respect for the creators who work within fashion. And as we move into whatever the open metaverse is, and I think we're all kind of pushing for that, this idea of presenting yourself through identity, but also earning a living through what other people use with their identity and how they present themselves is going to be a really interesting and probably quite a kind of deep-seated discussion around who we are, what we are, and what our gender is, and all these other things. And Nirmala, I'm curious whether you see a kind of political role to fashion, or whether you ring fence that, or whether you feel like you are waving a flag for something, because it can get a little bit political, decentralization and blockchain and everything else, and it can get in the way, I feel, sometimes as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think like what we're trying to do is, I think for us, it's like we kind of I think with the Fabricant, the mission was always to build the wardrobe of the metaverse. But they realized, we can't be the only ones doing that. We want to do it collectively with all these different people, and also bring a lot of people that, like, I think all of us have been talking about, all these different people that don't usually have access to that, into that space. In terms of when you start getting into like designing a community, which I think is kind of like what, designing a community, designing a tool set for a community to kind of build itself and kind of prop itself up and kind of create its own economies. It definitely does get, political. Like we had a session a few weeks ago talking about like, road mapping the future. And it's like, when we kind of create these different roles within our ecosystem, it's like we need to be thinking about like workers' rights. If we're talking about a where to earn economy or a play to earn economy, who's looking at that type of thing that we have in our kind of our society that's kind of been built up over, centuries and centuries through all these political movements. How are we kind of addressing that in these new economies that we're creating? I think that's something that we need to get into. And I think, we're actually bringing more people onto the team who can think at that level and think about it in the sense of like, okay, we're actually designing, how would you, learning everything we have from the current world and the current state, how do we design a platform that enables all these people, but at the same time doesn't just reward certain behaviors? Like it actually kind of has a more, I don't know. It's kind of like it has it kind of looks at workers' rights and the rights of the people that operate in our community. So there's definitely a lot of, I think if you're building in Web3, you're definitely in that space already, right? Because I think you've got to fundamentally change the way you approach how you design spaces and products and things like that. So yeah, so I think, are you just like backing out of that?
Yeah. Wait a second. This clown next to me in real time just diminishing my ability to. What on earth are you doing, Alp Gazimov?
No,
I apologize. You're in the middle of saying something quite profound there, and you just ruined it.
No, I think that's why you're like, okay, yeah. No, but I think that's like everyone on this call, right? We're really, and it's super exciting. And that's what is super exciting about it, is that we kind of get to reimagine like all the structures that we currently exist in, the way we work, the way we live, especially in the fashion industry. Like we're kind of focused on the fashion industry and the fashion economy, but you know, as kind of Emma was saying, it's like it goes beyond that, and I think that's what's really exciting. And so we definitely, you know, I think everything's connected. I know that's really cliche, but it is. And so we have to think about, you know, governance and things like that for sure. It's something we're getting into, and I'm personally really excited. I think that for me is one of the most exciting aspects about it.
It's also one of the most terrifying aspects of it, because there is nowhere to hide. Everything's transparent. You are deliberately open to criticism, but also to being celebrated. Shayli, we've talked previously about the problems that you saw in this industry. Could you outline for people who don't know so much about fashion what some of those issues are and how you've seen this space as a potential way to address some of them?
Actually, I think a lot of the problems we have really closely align with a lot of the problems that a lot of digital creators and game developers have. But it's a very, very old industry, and the way it's been operating has been unchanged for years. Whenever I meet up with my friends who work for Prada, for Louis Vuitton, for Balenciaga, for all these big brands, that we all go, yay! Everyone who's working in those brands are getting rorted quite frequently. There's an expectation that you have to go above and beyond, and they're leveraging their name in order to push people to their limits a lot of the time, because they can pick and choose whoever they want to hire. So everyone often has to do a couple, sometimes a ridiculous amount of unpaid internships. I've had friends who have done unpaid internships, then been hired, and then done an internship again. It just gets silly at a certain point. A lot of people are expected to work 7 days until 4 a.m. It's the way we've been trained, and we accepted that. And it doesn't really line up in this situation or this time where we're saying, you know, gender equality and racial diversity and, you know, we're woke to all of these things. And yet in fashion, we're still so very subservient and willing to say, okay, to a lot of really bad behavior in fashion. And it's sad. And I do find that my friends want to find a way out. Their work is so right for the game space. But the reason we started Mutani is because I know that highly creative people who are so right for this environment do need to work tactile. They are technophobic. They're not very interested in being on a computer all day. And I think the expectation at this point in digital fashion is that you either like learn it, you have to learn it yourself. So we're providing a space where we can take the technological part away from them, that they can concentrate on being creatively free, and we can handle it without them having to have their heads blown off by all these concepts.
Emma Jane, Facebook, Meta, what did you feel on that announcement day? Because I guess you probably were following along, because it has such a big impact on just the sentiment around everything that we're doing. How was it for you when Zuck spoke?
Look, I think it's two things, right? Number one of the biggest companies in the world just put a $1 trillion bet that the metaverse exists. That is amazing, because 1 year ago when we were talking about the metaverse, everyone called you naive, right? It was like, oh, you're naive, or this is just some, silly stuff. It might happen. We don't know. After that announcement, it's no longer a matter of if it's happening, it's just when. How do we accelerate the timeline? What are the tools that we need, the mechanisms that we need to put in place to accelerate the timeline for the metaverse really becoming a reality? And so from that perspective, it's like, let's go. That's amazing. But then when you look at the other perspective, I mean, there's two things to that, right? Number one, it's silly. I mean, like, is Zuck really going to be the baron of the new age of decentralization of Web3? Is he going to embrace openness? No way. I mean, we're just kidding ourselves. And with that said, I just think that it's that thing. A lot of Web2 is trying to come into like the metaverse and the Web3 space even. And because for myself, the full expression of Web3 really is the metaverse, the open decentralized metaverse. And so you see these players trying to come in, they're trying to mimic what they think, what the market is, but they have no idea what they're doing. And like even how we see it with Facebook for the past like 6-7 years, I mean, a decade, how much exploitation, how much have they intruded on everyone's privacy, violated like data, and they just get away with it. And to think that then the metaverse is just more and more data, it's richer data, that they're not going to take those same steps and intrude even more when they have a revenue, they have a business model, they have like advertising numbers going up, then that's just naive. And it's like, do you want your sexual arousals to be controlled by an algorithm or by someone on Zuck's team? That is disgusting. It's absolutely violating. The metaverse is filled with biosensors. That's where we're heading when one of these players comes in. And that's why decentralization matters. That's why with Digitalax, we have a global designer network now of hundreds of digital and physical fashion designers. Every week we run like a number of like high intense community calls going over all these subjects, getting designers with the right tools, knowledge, education to really launch into this market and to stay decentralized, stay authentic to Web3. Because if you don't, then this is literally where we're heading. Someone controlling your sexual arousals. And that is like, nobody wants that.
Like that.
And so, I think that it is a really important topic, and it's why all of this is so important. It's why like you've got to decentralize capital, tech, and governance. If you're not in Web3, anyone that tells you that they're in Web3 and they're not decentralizing those three things, they're lying to you and they're probably lying to themselves. So it's an important topic, and I'm just excited that to be in Web3, to know that these tools exist, because if we didn't have them, then we'd all be screwed. So we have the platform now. We don't need to rely on these other players.
I thought it was telling that when Zuck was presenting his version of the metaverse, he was dressed really boring. It was like, if you're going to present something wild and fantastical, like it was just like a missed opportunity. It's him staring at the digital version of himself like, dude, those slacks. Damn.
I'll say something like, I think Zuck is just, he's so out of touch with reality. You know what he called his latest like AR, VR headset? Project Cambria. It's like, what was one of the biggest public like stuff ups in Facebook's history? It's Cambridge Analytica. Like, what the hell, dude? Like, why would you go and call now your VR headset like this dystopic, on this like dystopic topic? So
have you worked for a big company? Like,
myself?
Yeah, but like any of you, like if you work for big companies, like generally what happens is like the decision-making process is, I've got a great idea, and then someone goes, I'm not sure Poland would like this. And then they go, oh, you're right, Poland wouldn't like it. Albania, I'm not sure they'd like it either. And then suddenly all those lovely, beautiful pointed edges get rounded down, and then you're left with a sack. And that is basically what happens. And the whole point about fashion and everything else is that it doesn't have to play by those rules. And so I'm that's why I'm hoping with what's being created here is that we don't have to play by those rules. You know, we can wear crazy stuff or we can wear interesting stuff and then throw it away the next day. And when I say throw it away, I mean actually throw it away, because we could either trade it or sell it or move it on. But environmentally, it has no impact. It has, it's a very easy disposable thing that we can transfer and move around. And I think that's what's so exciting about NFTs in the digital fashion space, is that fundamentally we are accustomed to paying for garments. For fashion still has a monetary value to us in a way that music, art, probably photography does not. And yet, for most people who buy NFT art or PFPs, they're going to hold on to them. They don't want to pass them on. But for fashion, it's like, oh, I could pass it on. I can move it around here. Someone else might want it. And you have this very, very, very high velocity marketplace for items, which is great because every time an item gets sold, whoever created it gets a royalty. So Rebecca, What does your royalty system look like for your metaverse? Do you even think about that, or are you just excited to be on the journey for, exploring some new territory?
We have had conversations about that, but I don't really know what that exactly will look like right now. But I'm just really excited to be a part of this space, and really, working, collaborating with other artists. That's a really a big deal for me, especially female artists. I've been meeting lots of artists here who are in the digital space, and they don't really feel like they belong because the limelight is always on the bros. And I'm really hoping that with my marketplace, I can, put more limelight onto women, because obviously there's a digital component, but there's going to be a district, an art district for people to mint their NFTs as well. So I'm hoping, to bring a light to female, designers and artists.
What do you mean when you say the limelight's always on the bros? Do you feel comfortable giving examples?
Well, I don't know whether this is I really like that Reese Witherspoon, that she bought some NFTs from World of Women, but she didn't buy from the collection from the very beginning, did she? She bought from the secondary market from some bro that's flipping. So it would be nice if, there was more support of female projects from the very beginning. I mean, Olive Allen, for example, has been in the space from the very beginning, and her work is not as valuable as other men in the space, and it really should be, because it's as good as theirs. So that's something that I'm cognizant of in this space. I
didn't want to bring it up because, well, I have a young daughter, and I'm conscious of how she's growing into this space, and she loves NFTs, but she loves them because there's like cupcake cats, and she looks at it and she's like, it's cool. But I'm noticing that she stands in front of the mirror, she does her hair, and she's starting to be more conscious of what she's wearing and how she's wearing it. And I'm also conscious of the fact that her identity and who she might end up being is going to be like a big deal for her, in a way that I'm kind of, just flippantly talking about this and that and everything else. But there is definitely a gender bias in blockchain towards men. If I look at the stats for our YouTube channel, it's 92% men. It used to be 99% male. We've managed to redress that balance somewhat, but it is a massive problem. So I guess it's probably only fair, we start with the Fabricant. What is your feeling on just the gender bias, the gender gap, or the gender problem, Nirmala?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that we're aware of. I think in the 3D industry in general as well, it's definitely heavily skewed to male. I think, the audience in the game space as well. But I think it's changing. And I think the more, and I actually think the more that we kind of adapt to everyone kind of working remote, they can do it from the computer as opposed to being physically somewhere. It does make it more accessible to all types of people, and yeah, it's definitely something we're aware of when we're kind of choosing our collaborators for our collection too. We try to make sure that we're surfacing voices that maybe might not be as heard as other voices in the fashion industry. But I think I think it's over time things will get better and better. I already feel like having worked, even working in the digital space for the last 10 years, it's definitely changing. And even that, we're having this panel now with all women, which is really exciting and cool.
Which wasn't deliberate, by the way.
No, exactly.
It's just the way it ended up. Which is one of those things. I just thought who was interesting, and I invited them on. That was it.
No, it's definitely something we're aware of, and not even just gender. Just also different, different backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds as well. It's and I think that's why it's really exciting to be creating, when you're in a Discord community and kind of creating with your community, it's great to just kind of chat to people that kind of are in there and kind of bring them on board. And I think it makes it so much more accessible. You can jump into a Discord group and literally talk to the founders of a project, you know, and the people that are creating it, as opposed to going through like email chains and things like that. So, you know, I feel like it's something we're aware of, and we're actively, when we are doing curation, trying to make sure that we're working with, women or like other groups. And yeah, I think it's getting better. I feel positive about it. I also just had a baby too, and have lots of thoughts about the future and the world that we're creating. So I also have these visions, but yeah, I feel positive about it, and I feel like the next generation is going to continue the great work that we're starting to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the overwhelming message for me, I was rereading an interview I did with Benoit from Artifact, again, 6-8 months ago. And he said, like, the thing that I love about this space more than anything else is that we no longer feel like we have to kind of protect and work in our own little groups. We just collaborate, and we just go after, like, what is cool, what gets us excited, what gets the juices flowing. And inherently, that's going to mean a lot of disagreements. There's going to be a lot of like clashes of ideas and everything else, which people see as a negative. I think it's an absolute positive. I think it's really good to disagree with people creatively.
Yeah.
Shayli, what are you excited most about? What gets you out of bed in the morning about digital fashion? Is it working with fabrics that don't exist in the real world? Is it connecting with people? What is it that gets you most excited about this space?
It's exactly the same reason that gets me excited about, well, whatever I make, even in physical. There's this really beautiful moment when you put someone in some crazy ass outfit and they look at themselves and they transform into another character, into another person, and they embody it, and they walk different, and they feel different. And actually, one of the models on this runway was a boy, and nobody knew it, but it was his first time in drag, and he was strutting his stuff like there was no tomorrow. And it's nice to be able to give someone this energy and this joy. And I see that the same in games. Really, the end point for me and for a lot of the designers that I'm working with is being able to see someone run around and fight and jump and play and have a good time and pretend and play make-believe. And that's really what I'm after at the end of the day, is just to see it being a fun thing to play with. Yeah, and
here are some of your plants, right?
Yes, my little plants.
That's a fun challenge, though. I think people are trying to really wake up to the power of Unreal Engine and what it does, because it feels like it's this sort of remote, weird game platform, but it's so much more than that. It's literally going to be the creative vehicle by which pretty much everything takes flight in the world, and that's weird, because it's a game engine and it's actually quite clunky to use as well, but it's amazing at the same time. Have you felt sort of liberated and empowered by discovering what it can do?
Yeah, definitely, like on an imaginative level, like being able to realize my drawings and my visions in this way, it's incredible. And seeing them move and seeing them animated, it's really inspiring and gets me thinking more. And it also brings to light that there's still so much to be pushed in this space too. I think that at this point, digital fashion, and my joke is always, when are we going to finish with the puffer jackets? Because it's still so much replicating what we know in life. Hoodies, sneakers, like, I'm bored, no offense, but there's so much more to what fashion is. It's such a wider scope, and we can even push that further with these tools. So heck, why not?
Yeah, well, I'm curious, Emma Jane, how the Digitalax DAO has worked for you, and how it's set up, and how you're inviting people to become part of your governance or your community.
Yeah, look, to do a DAO right, it's really hard, because at the moment decentralization isn't efficient. And so if you aren't actively putting decentralization first, then it's really easy to fall back into like centralized principles in a sense, centralized action, sorry. And so there's three really important things. It's about decentralizing the tech, the governance, and the capital. And with Digitalax, we're an entire protocol stack and ecosystem. So we actually have a lot of sub DAOs one of the really core DAOs is the Global Designer Network DAO. It's probably the most relevant to this conversation, or one of the most relevant. And that's filled with hundreds of digital and physical fashion designers that are at all stages in their journey of understanding Web3 and also understanding digital fashion, even physical fashion as well. And so in terms of how it works, well, we onboard them through our Discord and they start setting up their account. And once they set up their account, they're kind of understanding what a wallet is, understanding more about a kid. I can actually like mint NFTs, for example, and start selling my work. And then they also get what's called like a GDN membership NFT, and that's like their on-chain representation. And then they can start like contributing to the DAO. And when they contribute to the DAO, they start earning GDN governance token, which is a non-liquid token. And it's purely just for voting on like our snapshot votes and proposals. And we keep that really highly coupled to contributions and activity, because that's super important for that case. And then we also have a third layer, which is called W3F, Web3 Fashion. And that's a liquid trading token. We're actually launching that in just a couple of days, but that's going to have really cool utility throughout the entire Global Designer Network and Digitalax ecosystem, and also every designer's realm. So this new kind of thing that we've started is where instead of us being like a choke point in the market or just like a normal fashion NFT marketplace, we're enabling every designer with the tech. So all of our tech is completely open source. It's forkable with the engineering that they need, and also governance, helping them set up their DAO and their treasury and their ERC20 token to launch what we call like their own realm, which has all of these really essential features. So they need an NFT marketplace. They need to be able to have governance, as I said, incentivize their community through like NFTs and different mechanisms. And we help them with all of that, and also being able to get capital in, because you need money to be able to operate, but doing that in an authentic way where you're selling your NFTs, you're launching an ERC20 token instead of going and being in debt to some loan shark. So that's really how we've set it up. And so there's all these different tiers, but at the heart of it, it's all about the community. If you don't have momentum and engagement in your DAO, then good luck, but it's super hard. And so we run like hours of community calls each week. We have like other DAOs that we're always collaborating with on really cool projects. We have one with like Heat DAO coming out, which is like the very first fashion and dance collaboration on the blockchain. So that's really cool. And like we host things like Web3 Fashion Week, bringing every designer together. And we're focused on that indie side too, so they can self-express and start getting the tools they need to get capital, tech, and governance in this new market.
Have we had the Web3 fashion breakout moment yet? Do you feel like it's happened, or are we not there yet?
Definitely not. Definitely not. Because when I look at the market today, no one really understands what Web3 fashion is. We're not talking about what's really important about it, which is decentralization. It's this social coordination technology that gives you a power tool in your programmable garment. And that's what we need to get to. We need to be really understanding, not abstracting away decentralization. You can abstract away the tech and all of the really annoying nuances that come with like wallets and switching networks, all of these things, because that is painful. I deal with it every day. But you don't want to abstract away decentralization, because decentralization is why we're all here. And as soon as you lose that, then we just fall back into the old empire, the old systems, and all of these tools that we thought that we had that we could play with, they disappear. And so no, when we start really understanding that and talking about that, then I think that is going to be a full Web3 fashion breakout. I mean, even just look at the market today. There isn't an economy for Web3 fashion. There isn't like thousands of designers coming in, being able to launch their brands, launch their labels, be independent, be self-sovereign, build out like amazing communities where if you're like buying an NFT into that fashion realm, you now have access to maybe a game environment. You have now access to that designer's runway. We're not seeing that. And so when we see that, that's absolutely amazing. And that is a multi-trillion-dollar market. It's the focal point of the metaverse itself. So I'm so excited for that. And that's what we're building. It's about empowering every designer to be self-sovereign, be their own agent. And when we see that, then yeah, that's going to be really exciting.
But what do you think is getting in the way of us getting there? Because it feels like it should be obvious. If Timbaland is excited about making music with a Bored Ape, why is it so difficult to imagine that a conversation between Jay-Z and Beyonce could fall along the lines of, well, what if we did digital Beyonce? Look at that. I got digital. Whoa!
Get him.
His timing is impeccable. But you can imagine, Jay-Z, Beyonce in bed together. She's like, "Hey, want to buy an NFT, Bored Ape?" But yeah, he's like, fashion line. What's getting in the way of that conversation happening? Because it happened really quickly with NFTs, but fashion, it seems like is it because we don't have physical items and we think of fashion as a textile based thing that we wear? What's getting in the way?
I'm going to be blunt and say it's not pretty. It's not attractive enough yet. I'm sorry, everyone, but if I show a lot of this stuff to designers, they're not excited. So even when I think of the Dolce & Gabbana drop, their avatars were not exciting. The animations, you can still see some nice jiggling. There's definitely a lot to be fleshed out on both the technical level and a visual level. Even when I entered the space, there's nothing that brought me here other than this idea of freedom of creative expression. So I think that once things on an aesthetic level are built up to the full fantasy, then people will want to come on board. But I do think at this stage, it's still really nascent in that regard.
But I'm going to push back on that because CryptoPunks are the obvious riposte of that, which is their lo-fi. Crypto almost prides itself on being shit. Like you have Wojaks and you have badly drawn items, and they almost express a sort of futility of trying too hard. And it's a counterculture, which doesn't mean that it's wrong, but it means that what you're saying is I want to view the world through, ultra high level of detail, perfection of craftsmanship. And that may not necessarily be relevant to an audience that lives in this space. So I will push back on that and say there's a version of this that works for people that's very lo-fi and doesn't fill that kind of particular set of requirements.
I get that, and there's different fashion, there's different facets to the industry, and there's different facets to fashion. But I guess just from my perspective and the avant-gardes around me, that's why the people that I know aren't entering the space. But for the big brands, for other for other aspects of fashion, that's going to be different.
I think, Robin, I agree with you. I don't think it's visual salience at all, because I think, sorry, I have a ambulance going by. I don't think it is visual salience, because I can tell you, I design what's called trash fashion, and you've heard of the trash art movement, right? So I think exactly. And it's all about your own self-expression. What I think it's just any progression. I've been in Web3 for about 4 to 5 years. I came into the space from finance, trading variant swaps on Deribit, options contracts on Ethereum and Bitcoin. And for the most of Web3's kind of lifespan, it's been very focused on trading and finance. That's been the hub. We had DeFi summer last year that kind of kicked off a lot of the bull market, but that's where as well a lot of the capital is, a lot of the money before the NFT market. When you were in NFTs a year ago, there was really no money in the space. When you talked about NFTs to someone, they thought you were crazy, naive. And so it's like any progression. If you looked at super rare sales last year, some of these highest paying artists this year were selling for $20. And so it's just a progression. People are now starting to understand what is the blockchain. It's a social coordination technology, which means every single industry is being transformed by it. Fashion is one of them, and we're just getting there now.
Yeah, so I'm still a bit of a fashion wanker at the end of the day.
No, but that's fine. You're allowed to be, and you should be. Rebecca, you were about to jump in and say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if we want more people to come into the space, the punks are cool and everything. I get the alternative, but it's not very pretty. And fashion is known to be, elegant, right? Mm-hmm. So I think to make more people come into the space, and we do want more people to come into the space, right? It has to be more beautiful. It's not very beautiful right now. Everything looks a bit like a DOS PC.
And I think that was also for digital art too. A lot of people frowned at the space early on because the digital art, it had a certain aesthetic that other artists didn't feel that they could be a part of because it was a particular way.
Right.
Are we missing the point here, which is that the thing itself is not what matters. It's the story that goes with it. And everything, if it's done with enough love and craft and everything else, can be. Virgil Abloh, famously enough, used to take all sorts of weird things and just kind of repurpose them and then say, okay, well, now it's $800 instead of, $150. It hasn't tarnished his reputation at all. He was pushing boundaries and trying new things and really pushing the boundaries of what was possible in this space. If we start setting boundaries and limits on what we accept as being good, then aren't we just every bit as bad as what we're trying to disrupt in the first place?
I think that's also something that I really like about the space, is it really does grind aesthetic gears for a lot of people. It really allows a space to question what is beauty, what is aesthetics, what is art, what is value in this arena. And it really rubs a lot of people up the wrong way. So but I like that it kind of pokes that a little bit,
It rubs a lot of people up the wrong way because they can't get into the space. It's like the Web3 is meant to be, open markets, truly accessible. But in the same way that Web2 has its gatekeepers, which are corporations, Web3 has its gatekeeper, which is like complicated entry points. We want to make things, like Mechify everything, make it simple and intuitive. Space is not intuitive.
Web3 also has its gatekeepers in the sense that, for instance, the Bored Ape community loves the fact that a Bored Ape floor is now, pushing 50 ETH. And that means, I made it. I am part of a kind of sense of a new elite and everything else. And people who got in at the right moment and had that moment, it's the same people who bought Ethereum early, who bought Bitcoin early, they feel in a very privileged position and they don't want to let go of that position. But of course, as soon as they become establishment, you get rebels. And in the rebellion, you get the exciting new things. And it's for me, I see a lot of very exciting things happen. I'm looking for the second album. Can someone deliver a second album? If they can, then I'm sold. But it's very rare that anyone, product, protocol, fashion brand, music brand, anything else can deliver a second album. Because once that initial wave of excitement dissipates or disappears, then what have you got left? It's your own talent. And it's a very naked and rare and difficult place to be if that's all you have. So, Rebecca,
yes,
your drop, when it comes out, you're basically putting yourself on the line and in the images as well. So you've got nowhere to hide.
I know where to hide. That's why I like it.
But that's brave.
I know. That's just who I am. I like to take. I take risks. I am a rebel. I don't know. It just this world suits me. Emma, who I adore. I love that you brought her on this show. I heard her describe Web3 as Return of the Jedi. I like that. That really appeals to me.
Get my hand away. Hang on. Wait. We can do this right. We can do this right. Luke, I am your father. Etc. Etc.
Yeah, I think I've got a big light here as well. If I can pick it up.
Ooh, we got a Zoolander one. Oh my god! Well, listen, it's time for us to kind of wrap this up. But I wonder if there's anything that a burning thing that you want to tell us about digital fashion, because I will be doing a film tomorrow that hopefully gives people a primer and a little bit of an understanding about this space and why I'm so excited about it and what I think the breakthrough opportunities for it are. But I'm curious if you just have some final thoughts to tell people who might be curious, making their first steps into space, what you would tell them.
I guess
don't wear plaid.
I guess I would say that there's a lot of untapped creativity that hasn't entered this space. We're trying to facilitate that because I see like the potential and the fantasy of games, and I do want to be a part of the players and the subculture involved in games. I'm not so interested on the level of flipping and all of these things. I really want to get to this place where we're a self-expression tool, and in that regard, like we're having a drop on the Dematerialized tomorrow with the designer friend of mine, Stefan Kirchhoff, who worked for Walter van Beirendonk, BioRacer, Rombout, 3 really amazing brands. And he makes crazy ass shit. Look him up.
We like
wild.
crazy ass shit. We do.
It's crazy ass shit, and this is the kind of stuff we want to bring. So we're actually using the funds from whatever we make here to develop an archive, a library of rigged Unreal Ready assets that anyone can come and play with, because that's really what we want at the end of the day, is to play.
I like that. I think for me, it's a bit like Los Angeles. I thought I was going there to die, but actually.
Wait. You thought you were going there to die? I thought you were going there to act.
Everybody
in
Los Angeles, they go to Sinai Hospital, and that's where everybody goes to die in Los Angeles. So I thought, like,
this got morbid really fast.
No, but actually, Los Angeles, a bit like this space, is like super creative. It blows my mind that I could find a voice here and like think in this way. Like, I never thought of myself as a tech person, and maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm a new person that can be in this space and not be a tech person. And, I'm learning on the way. And I'm just finding that there is so much potential in this space. So I'm really excited about, bringing people and showing them what they can do in this and what this place can do for artists. I think it's a great space for artists. Hey,
but listen, there's a danger that it all comes a bit too arty-farty and too in love with itself and too in love with its own reflection. And we have to kind of keep it real to a degree, which I think is what we try and do on the Defiant.
Keep it real, then?
I think by being honest, by not gushing too much. Like the art of the gush, it tends to kind of happen a lot in the NFT industry. It's like, oh my gosh, I was lost, and then I found cool cats, and
now my mom has a house.
Yeah, my mom has a house. It's like, shut up, nobody cares.
So this space, like for me, I'm from the entertainment industry, where I found out a few years ago why I didn't get a job. I found out this year was because when I walked into the room, I acknowledged everyone, the casting director was the director, and the next girl who got it, she just like immediately, as soon as she walked into the room, she was dating the director, right? In this space, not waiting for anybody's permission, I can date myself. So maybe that's why I'm gushing about this space, because I see it's more freedom.
More freedom, or a different kind of freedom?
Different kind of freedom.
Yeah. And I think I'm worried about overselling this space, and I'm worried about overselling a lot of the things which they're not ready for prime time yet. It's very, very, very expensive to do any kind of business on Ethereum right now. And we have to acknowledge that. It's prohibitively expensive. And if you're trying to explain to people, yeah, you could do this. It's like, yeah, but that costs $65. That costs $120. And if you want to do that, well, that's going to be $500. But you just have to pay it.
But not if you're going to Poly. It's
Polygon.
a fraction of a penny to do.
It's a fraction of a penny. Well, this is true, but who's gotten far enough to know that actually they can move to Polygon via a bridge and then actually start working there and then have the wherewithal to come back and not get scared and put off by it. So we are
through doing videos like Audrey Mouse videos.
I mean, I'm financially like blocked from this space, like as is. Like I'm a poor artist. The only reason that I can enter is because I applied for funding calls to develop these projects. I went the old-fashioned way and wrote a really long, nicely worded letter application. And I'm really thankful that, City of Antwerp is a city and a government that actually recognizes this space. That's a gamble in and of itself, that I have to stand up there in front of all these kind of typical fashion people, typical government representatives, explain all these concepts. And at the end of the day, they're vouching for me. That's really something I'm shocked about, but also really grateful for, because it means that we can actually participate. Because actually up until this point, I wouldn't have been able to.
Do you have a hard time explaining to friends what's going on here, or do they generally get it?
Yeah, I just spoke at Fashion Talks, like a big fashion conference last week. And it was great because everyone did come up to me after and said I explained it really well. But I really have to explain it in the terms of very surface level, NFT blockchain situation. I don't quite get into decentralization. But the idea of being able to bring like your avatar or your digital fashion assets cross game and be able to curate what you wear in different virtual worlds, that's when people's eyes start to open, and they start to see a bit how their own work could be a part of that. Up until that point, it's a lot of blank faces.
The simple truth of it is that people need examples to follow. They need to understand how something's actually going to work. And I think what we've really come to embrace here at the Defiant is that we can do that, and we will have to do it in a way that nobody has done before. So you guys know we're building a full motion capture volume in the office next door. I'm going to be in a suit, jumping around, trying stuff out, failing, falling on my ass. But the fashion element of this is going to be such a big part of it, because I feel like our audience is on Instagram and they're on TikTok. And if we can present them stuff that feels familiar to them, feels right to them, then it will quickly be picked up by the biggest influencers in the world, who are female, who are young and very fashionable. And it will be through that self-expression that this story gets told. And it will be Web3 stuck underneath something that is just, a pair of sneakers, or it's a dress, or it's a hat, or a garment, or a bag. But I feel genuinely that fashion is the gateway drug for like the entire world to understand Web3. And I don't really understand why nobody gets that, because it's so obvious and so clear. And we have AR filters, like all the technologies already exist. There's no onboarding necessary. It's right there in front of us already.
Yeah, it's like when you wrap mincemeat around a pill and feed it to your dog.
I have never done that. What dog? What pill? Explain. Canine drugging with Shayli Harrison. It's a new YouTube show.
But Robin, what you've just said is so exciting. That makes me want to gush about the space.
Stop gushing!
So people are saying that the space is but then you keep on making these excellent arguments about why it's so great.
I am the gusher. You don't need to gush. I gush for you.
I wish I could hear that laugh right now.
Well, the thing is, I have to be quite sober and normal about all of this stuff, particularly when it comes to DeFi, because it's kind of like I have to explain deeply complex financial things. But then when it comes to the metaverse, I'm like, I'm gonna be a girl. I'm gonna be an alien. I'm gonna be like a robot or whatever. I don't care.
Oh, my favorite thing is like running into like a fairy, and then it has the deepest voice you've ever heard.
Damn. Yes. I am the one who gushes. That's damn it. That's written on my tombstone. I've done well. So Rebecca, just get someone to gush for you. Like we can hire a gusher for you.
Yeah, I need a gushing GIF.
A gushing GIF.
GIF like a waterfall.
This is Web3. Someone can start creating that stuff for you. What do you do? I make gushing GIFs. That's my job.
I have an amazing animator.
Gushing GIFs.
Gushing GIFs.
Yeah, who does your artwork?
Peterson. Sometimes I change his name. Petersonman. He does all the animations. He's amazing. He stays up till 2 o'clock in the morning doing them because it takes a long time to
Shayli's like 2 a.m. amateur, like real people just stay up all night. We don't sleep.
Have you tried 3 days without sleep?
Yeah, Antwerp posse.
I have anxiety. I mean, I only slept 2 hours last night because it's just like this space moves so quickly. I just can't sleep. It's like.
You have to kind of just tamp down on that. I tell you what though, kids make you honest. Kids will if you try and sleep like 2 hours a night with kids, they will fuck you up. They won't let you do it. You have to observe normal hours and send people home on time. My co-conspirator here, Alp, is late for his train, and he's giving me the look right now. So this is time for us to wrap up the stream.
Okay,
thanks so much for being on the stream with us. There he is.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on, Robin. I really appreciate it. I just love the Defiant so much.
There's a gush. Stop gushing.
Why? Why is that a bad thing? Tell me one reason why it's a bad thing. Because you want me to
cringe, mega cringe. Yeah.
It's not bullshit.
Yeah, but I'm a young male in the prime of life trying to find my way in the world.
He's come to LA to die.
Come to LA to die. Welcome.
And that's where the stream ended in chaos. But these things, it's Friday night. It should be a party. My thanks to Emma J. McKinnon. It's Thursday. Shit.
Oh, it is. I didn't even notice.
I didn't realize.
I can't wait to go back to LA. Hate now.
My thanks to Nirmala Shome and Emma J. McKinnon Lee. My thanks to Shayli Harrison and Rebecca Ballantine Reid for joining us on the stream. There's so much more we could talk about, but we'll do it offline when no one else is watching. Thank you so much. It's time to end. I will see you on the next one. Peace!